Hello, my name is Debbie, and believe it or not, we are on the last chapter of The Go-Giver, chapter 14, called The Go-Giver. Okay, so let's start reading. The young woman emerged from the parking garage, blinking in the bright August sunlight. "You'll do fine, Claire," she murmured to herself for the third time that morning. She'd been communicating with this company for a few weeks now, but it had been all by phone and email. Today she was going to meet the man herself. "You'll do fine," she repeated, and headed down the block. Claire had done quite a bit of research on this young company in the past few weeks, hoping to gain some insight into exactly what might have capitulated into such an amazing overnight success. It was not quite a year since one of the company's founders had had the good fortune to land the huge contract that launched the business she was about to visit into the stratospheric rise. One of those sweetheart deals that comes along once in a lifetime, if then, was how the one magazine article had described it. Yet in the 10 months since he had his two partners had come into the good stroke of luck after another. As young as he was, there was already a reputation circulating about his having a golden touch. Claire arrived at the address she'd been given, a converted factory building in the city's old garment district. Surrounding by the boutique grocery markets and loft apartments, she proceeded through the door, and sure enough, there was the name hand carved into the large wooden sign in the quaint tile foyer: Rachel's Famous Coffee, 5th floor. She leaned back and glanced up, counting the floors. The 5th floor, that would be the top floor. The sun's glare made her a little dizzy. "Doesn't look like their success has gone to their heads," she mused as she stepped through the tiny foyer and into the ancient elevator. The receptionist at Rachel's Famous Coffee greeted Claire with a warm smile and directed her down a long hall to the door bearing the single word "brainstorming." She knocked twice softly, then twice again with more assurance. The door swung open as she heard a man's voice exclaim, "Come in." A beaming, spectacled, round-faced man in his late 30s ushered her into the spacious conference room as he shook her hand. "You must be Claire," said the man. "I'm Hansen, Neil Hansen. It's so good to meet you. My partners and I appreciate all the hard work you've put into your proposal." Claire nearly gasped. The huge polished hardware conference table in the center of the room was covered with elaborate scale model of what looked like tiny mountainside settlement. On the outskirts of the village, a bank of wind-powered turbines drove a nearly invisible irrigation system that snaked through the series of tired fields. The designer in Claire marveled at the simplicity and efficiency of the whole thing. It was stunning. "Thank you very much, Mr. Hansen." Claire glanced up at the wall on the other side of the table and saw that it was covered with breathtaking, beautiful photographs, all of them black and white shots of children of various ages and modes of dress. The man followed her gaze and smiled warmly. "Amazing, aren't they? There's no force more powerful than the trust in a child's face." He walked around the table with Claire as she took the photo after photo. "Many of them are the children of our partners in the different regions where we do business. Rachel took all of these herself on the last trip," he added. "She'd been there to meet you too, but she's out of the country right now, back in Central America, nailing down some key connections for our big project we're launching later in the fall. Big project. I'm talking seriously huge. But hey, you're here to see my other partner anyway. Yes? Claire nodded. Why don't you go ahead in, said Neil Hansen, gesturing to connecting the door to the next office. He's expecting you. Claire, welcome. Thanks for coming to and taking the time to see me, said the third founding partner of Rachel's Famous Coffee. It's an honor, sir, Claire replied, as she wondered why he was thanking me. Please call me Joe. If you say sir, I won't know who you're talking to. Claire smiled. Despite her nervousness, something about the man's voice had put her curiously at ease. All right, Joe. Thank you, said Joe. He showed her to a chair and then took a seat himself. Claire, I want you to know that we all generally appreciate your proposal. It's obvious you put a great deal into it. He paused briefly. I need to let you know, he continued, that we've decided to give the fall marketing campaign to your competition. There it was, the moment Claire had been preparing for all morning, yet it still hit her like a thunderclap. I appreciate your telling me in person. You're not surprised? How could I be, sir? I mean, Joe, they're a big firm and I'm a solo freelancer. The fact is, they have a lot more to offer than I do. Actually, Joe replied, with all due respect, we don't think so. More experienced, yes, and they're excellent at what they do. But frankly, Claire, you're very talented. And what's more, you've got a heart. Heart? Claire was confused. I just told you that we're giving this contract to your competition. Your response was to thank me and give them a compliment. You've got heart. In fact, Joe continued, that's why I asked you to meet with us today. The campaign we're giving your competition is an important one, but you've got another project that in the big scheme of things is even more so. My partners and I have started a foundation that is about to launch a major international initiative. The purpose of the Rachel's Famous Coffee Foundation is to work with indigenous communities throughout Central America, Asia, Southeast Asia, and all the coffee-producing countries in the world, helping to create community-based, self-sufficient business cooperatives. He paused a moment to let Claire absorb what he was saying. This project is going to make a genuine, lasting difference for communities all around the world. It's going to take a significant amount of money to fund it properly. We need someone to design and coordinate the global effort to raise that money. I know this is a little different from what you've been doing up until now, but we'd like that someone to be you, if you're interested. Claire was too thunderstruck to say a word. Joe nodded as if Claire had spoken and continued. Of course, you'll need to think about this. What I really like is to have my wife, Susan, tell you more about it. She's the smartest civil engineer I know, and we've been lucky enough to persuade her to leave her position with the city and join us. And he glanced at his watch. She'll be meeting me in a few minutes downstairs to go for lunch. Do you have time to join us? Claire paused, looking for the right words. Sir, Joe. Joe said nothing, but gave her a gentle nod as if to say, go on. How do you do all of this? Joe looked slightly puzzled. Do all what? How do you create something amazing, these amazing situations? It's not even a year since you and your partner started this whole thing. Most people would still be struggling just to get a new business off the ground. And you're already launching massive projects and having a worldwide impact. I guess what I'm saying is I'm very flattered by your offer, and I'm certainly interested in learning more about your project. Very interested. But what I'm most interested in is learning how you do what you do. It's got to be more than just being lucky or in the right place at the right time. Whatever it is you three have tapped into, I'd sure love to know what it is and how it works. For a moment, Joe seemed lost and thought Claire was starting to wonder if she'd been too bold or perhaps offended him. When he took a deep breath and spoke, "A question like that deserves a clear, complete answer, and I promise to give you exactly that over lunch, if you're free to join us. Have you ever been to Infrantes? It's our favorite." Claire heard herself say, "Thank you, and no, I haven't." Joe smiled and he got to his feet. "There's someone there I'd like you to meet." Sounds like it's going all over again, right? So it's really interesting. That was the last chapter. So remember the 5 laws of stratospheric success. I'll just summarize them. The law of value: your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. And then the law of compensation: your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. The law of influence: your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. And then the law of authenticity: the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. The last one, the law of receptivity: the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Wow, this book was amazing. They give acknowledgments. There's a few questions. There's a discussion guide that people will do. I mean, you can have meetups and talk about the book. There's questions that they give you. Here, I'll read a couple. Many of our readers have explored the Go-Giver together in their book clubs, business study groups, houses of worship, and community groups, or among friends and family. The questions below may be helpful in guiding your discussions. So number 1, here's one. Joe first visits the chairman because he is hoping to get some big guns to win back the deal he just lost. And he believes Pindar will give him clout and leverage. Page 3. Does he get what he went looking for? If so, how? And if not, why not? So that's a question that they put in this discussion guide. So you can meet with people and, have lunch together, have coffee or whatever you want to do, and have these questions here so that people would come and ask the questions, and maybe somebody will already know right away, or maybe you turn to the page that they've given you. So here's number 2. Joe is surprised at how easily he gets in to see Pindar, and further surprised when Pindar remarks on how often successful people are willing to share their secrets with others. And that's page 8. Have you found this to be true? How often you go about meeting someone you'd want to learn from? So those are pretty interesting questions that people can brainstorm together. I think it's really good when people come together and network and they do the brainstorming, because you don't think about what somebody else might have said, right? And then you have something that maybe somebody else didn't think about. So you brainstorm together and you come up with all these ideas and true answers that were from the book. So I'm going to come back, and there's another part here, Q&A with the authors, which I think will be pretty interesting. So even though I've already completed the book, so you've already read the book, you've listened to it, I should say, I'll come back with the Q&A, okay? I'll do that next time, and see you later. Bye.